Hi everyone, I wanted to show you a few things in Excel that are not that commonly known, and I found them to be really useful in business sense, creating reports and just looking at some basic data manipulation that makes everyone's life easier. So I've come up with a bit of a data sheet here that's really just looking at random numbers, spend on bunnies by colour and by area, and essentially just to break things down a bit and include a date as well. One thing I want to point out, and some of you might or might not know it, is there's something in Excel called the formula view, which you can, on the UK keyboard, you can get by pressing Ctrl and the top left button at the same time, not escape obviously, and it's going to make things look like this. So if you've not seen this before, I'll talk you through a bit because I'm going to be using this a little. So you see how the dates have turned from that into a number. That's because Excel stores dates as a number and just formats it for basically human consumption. Something to know. Also, you get the full numbers and so on and so on. If I actually had a formula in here, you would see it. You'll see them later. So, things I want to talk to you about are links, linking data, also adding in a bit of text, as in the function, text function. I want to show you some if and some ifs, a bit of VLOOKUP. I want to talk to you a bit about indirect, because it seems to be one of those mysterious things that are difficult to master, but they're extremely useful. I'll talk the basics of indirect. So let's start with linking things. The first thing you need is to have some data in there. You can have any sort of format, numeric or just a percentage. So let's say we'll do 33%, and you could copy and paste as a link. Now in Excel 2013, the software knows that you're talking about a percentage, so it's actually going to paste in as whatever format you used in previous versions, not always. I'll show you in a moment what to do about that. You can also do equals, and you point at whatever you want to link to. The obvious advantage of this, that if that number changes, so do your links. Now, in older versions, this would actually look like 0.34 if you link it, because older versions don't seem to care much about formatting, which is really where the text function can come in, really useful. You say text, you point at whatever you'd like, and you use a format. Now, Office Help has about 3 pages on the different formats you can use with text. I'm not going to copy paste or read all that out. Basic ones you want to try are date related functions and number related functions. Number related functions are, that's a number, it's going to be 0.34. If you want to use it as a percentage, you use it as a percentage. That's the really simple text for numbers. However, there's a bit more to this that I wanted to show you. Imagine you have a report where you can link in to an ever-changing sheet, where for sake of simplicity, you know, I'm going back to the previous sheet now, you know that that's always the latest date and that's always the date before. So you can do a lot of things with linking. You can say you copy and you paste in from the other sheet. You'll actually see it has data sheet, which is the name of the sheet, exclamation, and then the cell reference. But let's say you want to say, you know, this is a report, source, my bunny company, week ending last day of December. So you could, theoretically at least, say, you know, your text is source, my bunny company, blah 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 blah, week ending and it's not really going to work because of what I showed you before. That's how Excel stores the number, and that's what you're seeing here. So here's where text function comes in again. You can say you want to format that as a date. Again, there are a lot of date options. I'm not going to go through all of them. Maybe in a different video if there's need for it, I'm happy to. But basically what you say, text, that's your value, and you can format it as day, month. I'm just going to use this version. If you use 2 M's, it's just going to say 12. If you use 4 M's, it's going to say December. So it's just going to say DEC. And lo and behold, that's what you want. So if new month comes out and that gets updated to 31 the 1st of 15, that's going to say the same thing, which is really useful. You can use the same thing with different workbooks. It's not a bit different from this, same idea really. You can also take around numbers and text a little. So you could say that we know this is a number. So what you could do is use a calculation. You could actually add the week to it. So because it's a number, it's stored as a day. So a week is 7 days, you had 7 days. Again, you had 7 days extra, and so on and so on. That's basically links and text for you. Now SUMIF and SUMIFs. SUMIF has been in Excel since beyond the dawn of time, but SUMIFs was new in 2007, which is not that new anymore, but some companies still use it and some people still don't know about it. So I'll show you that one. The idea of SUMIF is really what it says on the label. You sum up data depending on conditions you set. So you want to do SUMIF. You have your range, which is not your sum of the range. It is where your criteria match will be found. So if you go back, that's your range. Your criteria is white bunnies, and your sum range, I don't know, let's do that one. Now you'll find a bit of a bug with this. So if you are not familiar with fixed cell references, what this means up here is if you move your cell reference, you copy paste your cells, it's going to move the goalpost. I'll show you in a moment. So that's how many white bunnies we've sold. But the problem you have is, if I copy paste that now and using F2 edit the link, if I go back, right. So if I go back, still doesn't show. Anyway, it says B3 to B6, which is down here rather than up there. It's because we've moved the goalpost. So what you want to do is using F4, you press it once, you press it once, and you don't press that one because you do want black bunnies to be the next, but you do press F4 here and you press F4 there, and so when you copy paste again, you'll find it's using the appropriate numbers. Now at SUMIF, SUMIFs use a similar idea, except you can specify a number of conditions that you want to meet. It's largely similar, but not entirely. So this case, you actually do start with your sum range, which is going to be this one, and you fix it by pressing F4. You then say criteria range, which is bunnies, so again F4. And your criteria 1 is going to be this. And your criteria 2 range, we're going to do sectors. So, well, areas. So north, south, you fix it, and your actual criteria, you could point to a cell that says north or south. You can, however, also just do south, which means that's how many white bunnies have been sold in the south, and that's how many black bunnies have sold in the south. This works a bit the other way around in terms of what happens if you have to specify something that is a not condition, such as not sold in the south. Well, in that case, you really just do almost the same thing. So you say that and south. And now you see there have been 26 black bunnies sold not in the south, which is the north really, so you just get one cell. Really simple. It's just you have to keep in mind that you have to put the more or less mark in double quotes, and you have to use an ampersand if you're following it by anything apart from a number. Actually, you have to use it all the time. So that's some ifs. VLOOKUP. VLOOKUP was one of those things that, at least for me, took ages to get my head around, and then I figured it's really simple. So there's one simple rule to VLOOKUP, and just in case you don't know what VLOOKUP is, so VLOOKUP lets you find a corresponding value that is to the right. It's going to make a bit more sense in a moment. So let's say you want to find VLOOKUP white bunnies. You point at your table. Now here's the trick about being everything on the right. You have to start with your column that has your lookup value. So your table A has to start here, not here. It's not going to work because there's no white bunnies in column A. I like to fix things, so fix it. Then essentially you say your column index number, which is the number of column you want to find things in. So if you want to find the area, it's going to be 2, column 2. If you want to find the first year's values, it's column 3, and so on. I'll say column 3. And range lookup is one of those things. It's always false unless you have a good reason to make it true, in which case that assumes you know what you're doing. I've never seen it true. There's a trick to this. VLOOKUP is not massively smart. It will always return the first value it finds. So I'm going back here, and you'll notice that there are 2 white bunny rows. The first one says 12, the second one says 18, and what has been returned was 12 because that was the first one that met the criteria. If you want to do more advanced things, you want to think about concatenating into a column. So you say white bunnies south. You can actually hide this from your client, your manager, it doesn't matter, it's just for Excel. So what happens here is going to say white bunnies south. So when you do your VLOOKUP, what you actually do is to say VLOOKUP that and south. We want south. Actually make it north because that's the second one. North. So you'll see that that's what actually comes back. Now this is where it starts now, not there. So this is where we'll find things. I'm just going to make this simple. 2 and false. If you don't put false in there, it's actually going to return the wrong numbers. And now it says 18 because even though white bunnies 18 was the second occurrence of white bunnies, but it's the only occurrence of white bunnies north. And yeah, if you don't want to see, if you don't want people to see this, you hide it. just use the H key. So that's VLOOKUP for you. Now comes indirect. I'm going to make this reasonably simple. There's a lot to indirect, and I could probably spend an hour explaining it, and if you've not seen it before, you'll just hang yourself or me. So really, I'm sure there's an official definition to this, but what indirect does is you can use Excel cells, values, and formula results as a cell reference. What it's going to mean is, you know, I showed you how you have a sheet there called data sheet. Well, what if you had names for your, I don't know, co-workers like Bob and Jill and all that stuff, and you want to find some detail on the sheet that is called your employee name, like Bill and whatever. What you can do with indirect, for example, is you can use a certain reference to find details. So what you do indirect, now you want to reference other sheets with single quote, which has to be in double quotes, and then you point at whatever you want to point at. So data sheet, I'll show this in a moment if it doesn't make sense, and you just follow this through, and then you say, and let's say address 1 doesn't matter. Excel's going to bitch about things missing. Oh yeah, I missed out that one. And it's going to say measure type, because in first cell of data sheet we have measure type. Now the trick is, you know, if we had a sheet here called Bob, which is going to break the whole thing, but then it would be looking at the first cell of the sheet Bob. We don't have a Bob sheet, hence it's not happy, but that's the idea. There are things you can do with this slightly more advanced. I'll show you a few things. You can use a wildcard. So using the same idea as before, but you want to find something in the first cell, I'll just take that one and paste it in here, and it's not going to work. Yes, it doesn't work because there is no SH1. You have sheet, well, SH1 blah blah and blah blah SH2. So comes the trick. You actually say, you come in here, and after your single quote you put an asterisk, and before your single quote you put another one, and you'll find that up here I actually have bunnies 1. So you take the same thing, and it's now pointing at whatever has SH2 in it, which is that one, and it has bunnies 2. Now the reason why I have a bunnies 3 in here is because I want to show you a slightly more useful use to this whole thing. You can use indirect for counting things, as I mentioned. So what you can do is to use the previous logic and use values for sheet names to get your data out more easily. So you'd say count A, because you're counting text, not numbers. Indirect, we'll just use the same logic. So star A9 and star, and I'm actually going to follow this through this time. So I'll say A to A, and A is going to be A1 star because we're not using rows and columns as such, and that should of course say 1, which is 2 because we have one thing here. In the next one, however, we have 2 things. So if I copy paste this down, it turns to 2. There are a lot more advanced applications of indirect. I'll get into it at some point. If you guys are interested, use the comments or questions, and the more things that get asked, or the more things get asked, both really, I'll try to focus on next time. So if you found that reasonably useful, I'll see you again at some point.